I've got the Packers over here, and I've got the Bulls over here. I hate the Bulls more than I hate the Packers. The Bulls have robbed me of my love and my passion for Chicago basketball.
There's one word that brings hope and strikes terror into the hearts of every experienced sports fan: rebuild. The optimism comes from an obvious place. When a front office fully commits to it, that process is the most stable way to build a true juggernaut. Young stars with overlapping timelines. No draft debts looming in the distance. Just an exciting present and a promising future. An organic title contender that makes everyone in the stands proud to wear a jersey. But there's another side of the spectrum. If you've been watching the game long enough, you know the signs. Gambles that don't make sense, acquisitions that actively conflict with one another, and decisions that undercut the choices they already made. Sooner or later, the whole operation folds in on itself. Owners start firing off icy jabs at their own supporters, and GMs deny the existence of the rebuild entirely as the crowd's excitement is replaced with overwhelming frustration. It's the blueprint for the destruction of a fan base. The only way to turn collective passion into shared apathy. And this past deadline, we watched that depressing journey reach its uninspiring conclusion in the basketball holy ground of Chicago. Step 1. Build assets. In the 2010s, the Bulls were a different organization than they are now. They had an identity. Whenever you watch Chicago play, you got the same things. Derrick Rose hop-stepping into the stratosphere, and Joakim Noah barking out orders, with Jimmy Butler smothering opposing scores. It was a great formula that made them a power in the Eastern Conference. But by 2017, the foundation was wearing away. Noah and Rose were in New York, and Tibbs was coaching the Timberwolves. The only remnant left was Jimmy Butler, and it was getting more and more obvious that Butler and the team were on different timelines. Jimmy Butler was entering his prime, but with this roster around him, Chicago was wasting some of his best years on a team whose ceiling was a feisty 8 seed. So they did the forward thinking. The Bulls made a deal with the Timberwolves, sending their homegrown all-star away for a young Zach LaVine, a younger Chris Dunn, and an incoming rookie named Rory Markkanen. Right after that, Vice President of Basketball Operations John Paxson held a press conference to make things crystal clear. He told the media they were tired of barely making the playoffs, exhausted with the early exits and the deteriorating reruns, and now they were doing it. They were rebuilding. Just like that, the new direction was set. Between those 3 incoming prospects, as well as a third-year Bobby Portis who was already on the roster, Chicago was set and ready to do this the long way. They'd give the young guys the minutes they needed to develop, and in the meantime, they'd lose. They weren't going to shy away from it. They were going to let their new core form as they gradually added to it with the lottery picks they earned by taking their lumps. The next season, the Bulls started Lauri Markkanen and Zach LaVine in every game they were available for. They let Chris Dunn run the offense and constantly got Bobby Portis involved off the bench. And as expected, they lost a lot of games. Chicago finished the season with a 27-55 record, putting them firmly in the lottery. And the best part was, the young guys didn't look bad. No one was a surprise star yet, but they all looked like potential high-level rotation pieces, or at the very least, assets. Potential building blocks for the future they were still in the process of imagining. And that offseason, they added another one in the draft, taking Wendell Carter Jr. with the 7th overall pick. Next season, it was rinse and repeat. Lose a lot of games in the interest of development, then adjust the plan according to the results. And this time, the results were even more promising. Zach LaVine looked like a dangerous offensive weapon, someone capable of efficiently averaging 25 a night, and he was only 24 years old. Markkanen was quickly becoming one of the most promising stretch bigs in the league, and Wendell Carter Jr. had all the tools to be a perfectly modern complement to the front court. They weren't good yet, but they were exciting, and for the next 2 seasons, they kept stockpiling pieces and accepting losses. They drafted Kobe White and Patrick Williams with their next 2 first-round picks, and found Daniel Gafford with one of their second-rounders, and they took flyers on unproven young guys like Max Strus and Luke Cornett. It wasn't anything yet, but it wasn't nothing either. either. There were a couple missteps here and there. They cut Max Strus after 2 games, let Chris Dunn walk in free agency, and traded Bobby Portis to Washington for Otto Porter Jr., all of which are pretty devastating in hindsight, but they weren't crippling. All they had to do was hit on a couple more picks and keep finding value in the margins. And in a matter of years, the United Center would be up on its feet, chanting defense to a young underdog they watched grow up. A visual so sweet, you could almost see it. Step 2. Cash in early. Patience wasn't paying off yet, but you could see the dividends building. Soon enough, they would transition from the stage of acquiring assets into managing them, choosing who to trade and who to keep as they formed the next iteration of the contending Bulls team. But in reality, they never really got there because the front office jumped the gun. On March 25th, 2021, with the team sitting at 19-24, 1 win streak away from putting themselves in the playoff picture, Chicago picked up the phone. First, they took a big swing. They sent Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks to Orlando for Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu. Then they backed it up with another move meant to add some more ready-made firepower to the bench, sending Daniel Gafford to Washington and Luke Kornet to Boston for Troy Brown Jr., Daniel Tice, and Javonte Green. There was no more building for the future or waiting for players to develop. Not anymore. Management wanted to see results now, and they'd trade away whatever pick or whichever player they had to in order to get them there. The first year, it didn't work out. As productive as Vucevic was offensively, the defense took a massive step back, and Chicago actually got worse. They finished the season 31-41 and watched the Magic draft Franz Wagner with their pick. Whether they knew it or not, they'd already lost the trade, but at this point, it was too late. The sunk cost fallacy had already kicked in. They couldn't go back to being patient. The front office had already called its shot, so they came into the free agency period with the urgency of a team that was hoping to contend for titles right away. They let a 24-year-old Lauri Markkanen go in a signing trade with the Cavs that gave them Derrick Jones Jr., but most importantly, it gave them cap space. Cap space to sign DeMar DeRozan to a 3-year deal, as well as Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. In a single summer, they had cashed in almost all of the chips they stockpiled, trading picks and letting young players leave with the idea of building an immediate contender around a handful of decorated veterans and Zach LaVine. It was bold, reckless even, the exact kind of risky spree that can jeopardize half a decade's worth of work if they were wrong. But through January, it didn't look like they were. The Bulls were flying up and down the floor and burying opponents in an avalanche of points. LaVine was thriving in the open floor, and DeRozan's high post gravity worked perfectly with Vucevic as a versatile play finisher. And the key to the unorthodox engine they were putting together was Lonzo Ball. He set the pace, distributed the ball, and organized the offense whenever he was on the floor. When they were all out there, Chicago was good. Top seed in the East good. The criticism was still out there though. The conference was bunched together and they had a pretty beneficial schedule so far, but there was a chance for them to make some real noise in the playoffs for the first time in what felt like forever. But tragically, we never got to see it. The first game after the All-Star break, Lonzo Ball went down with an injury, and from there, the delicate machine stopped working. Chicago regressed back to the mean, finished the season 46-36, and were quickly sent home by the Bucks in 5 games. When you bet on bad odds, there's no margin for error. Step 3. Doubling down. The news only got worse from there. That summer, they found out Lonzo's knee injury wasn't just temporary derailing, it was career threatening. He wouldn't play at all next season, and at the time, it felt like there was a real chance he would never play again. Now the Bulls were at a crossroads. Vucevic was entering the final year of his contract. Their primary playmaker was out for the foreseeable future, and they were about to run it back with the same roster that had just been quickly knocked out in the first round. DeRozan and LaVine's value was higher than it ever would be, and Vucevic was a more flexible trade asset than ever before. If they wanted to hit the reset button, they could, but it doesn't seem like they gave much thought to that. Instead, they turned to Ayo Dosunmu to take Lonzo's role, a second-round pick from a year prior who flashed promise and limited playing time, and otherwise, they kept things moving. But with a slightly diminished roster, all they got were slightly diminished returns. Chicago finished 40-42 and lost in the play-in to the Miami Heat. There were no early hot streaks or promising pinnacles this time. time. In the offseason, a lot of analysts wondered if they would start selling, maybe send Alex Caruso to a contender who would be willing to overpay for him. Instead, they stayed put. By now, the frustration was filling the atmosphere. The core was built around 2 players in their 30s and 1 volume scorer who was entering his prime. There were no young guys or new upgrades to get excited about. It was starting to seem like there was just no plan at all. Like the decision makers at the top were content hoping someone on the roster took an unexpected leap instead of addressing any of the structural issues. And what's really crazy is that 2 guys actually did. Coby White became an efficient near 20 point per game scorer over the summer, injecting the Bulls offense with another source of creation. And Ayo Dosunmu was coming into his own as a dynamic spark plug, but it didn't matter. Zach LaVine spent most of the season dealing with various injuries, and the Bulls ended the year 39-43, 1 loss worse than they were a season ago, before losing in the play-in to the Miami Heat. It felt like the same exact season with slightly different box scores. Thankfully, the next summer, they actually made some moves, but let's not get too crazy here. Only some though. First, they drafted Modest Buzelis with a first-round pick they managed to hold on to, and sent Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. That return for a now 2-time championship catalyst was a little underwhelming, but at least it was a promising young prospect to root for. Then they made their last move, DeMar DeRozan for Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks. A perennial all-star who at one point commanded the trade value of at least a handful of first-round picks was moved for a fringe roster player and 2 second-rounders. We can't even make that sound worse than it already does. On the very dim bright side, they were coming to a season with at least a slight shakeup to the lineup, and halfway through the year, they took things a step further. After years of speculation, they moved Zach LaVine, and in return, they received Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and their own first-round pick they had lost in the DeRozan sign and trade. For the first time in 3 years, it was a mostly new core, and the results were a 39-43 record, and a play-in loss to, say it with us now, the Miami Heat, a franchise with a statue of Michael Jordan standing out front of their arena, and 6 Larry O'Brien trophies on display in their halls had been reduced to an annual warm-up game for Eric Spoelstra. That's a hellish purgatory. Step 4. Liquidate late. Finally, that brings us here to the 2025-26 NBA season, where the Bulls entered the year with low expectations and then started surprisingly hot. For a brief moment, the vibes were high. They were scoring a lot of points, swinging the ball around. Even the Pope was rocking a Bulls jersey. It was enough to move a lot of people, us included unfortunately, but it didn't take long for the fans to see through it. Seasoned Chicago supporters, like our guy Kenny Beecham, knew better, and very quickly, they were proven right. The Bulls came back down to earth, regressing to the middle of the pack before mercifully punting on the doom bet they placed in 2021. Unfortunately, the return was just as discouraging as that entire era was. From various deals that would be too boring to list individually, Chicago traded Nikola Vucevic, Ayo Dosunmu, Coby White, and a handful of additional assets for 4 guards and 1 center. Hardly any of those deals matched up with the expected value of the asset or lived up to the rumored offers from earlier in the season. And just to add salt to the wound, they rerouted Ousmane Deng to Milwaukee right after landing him. You know, the guy who had Bucks fans making edits after 2 games. Okay, to be fair, some of these new additions have shown promise. Jaden Ivey had his moments in Detroit. Anthony Simons has been a valuable contributor everywhere he's been, and this YouTube channel would personally appreciate Rob Dillingham making a leap, but on paper, it doesn't make any sense. There's no direction. All the different parts actively clash, and there's a decent chance 1 or 2 of them aren't on the team next year. And if you squint, you could already see Norman Powell dropping 40 on them in a play-in matchup. As you guys know, we like to stay positive. We like to look for the best in everything, but we aren't gonna force a silver lining into this. This has been one long and sickeningly repetitive nightmare, but one day, the right person will get behind the wheel. They'll stay patient, own their mistakes, and draft the next Franz Wagner instead of gift wrapping him to someone else. Keep holding on, Chicago. Even purgatory doesn't last forever.